Alrighty, welcome to episode 305 of Backpacking America. We are in our new studios in Bellport Village, New York, hosted at the Barone Media Solutions headquarters. And really nice studio. We got two setups, really that could double as three depending on the view you choose. And I gotta tell you, a lot of cool stuff coming your way for Backpacking America and for my company. But that's not what I want to talk about today. Today I want to talk about cost of living. Stuff is going up. And people's hopes are going down, which is normal in a very uncertain economic period. And I kind of want to take back to the roots of doing political commentary. I've been slacking on episodes because I've been trying to rebrand the show, and it's just I didn't like how I was rebranding it. So I'm going to just go back to how I was and just rant about politics. So pretty much. One of the things that really made me want to talk about the economic uncertainty is really just where I live on Long Island and where a lot of my viewership lives on Long Island. It's very hard for people under 35 to make a living here. And, you know, a lot of people were hopeful when Trump got into office that things would turn around very quickly. And, you know, I was one of those people. I still am hopeful. I know it'll take longer. What's causing a lot of economic uncertainty currently is the trade war and the amount of tariffs that are being placed on foreign countries. And I just want to talk a little bit about tariffs. So tariffs, yes, they are technically a tax that gets put on the consumer and put on the importing nation as a result. So what happens is the nation that wants America to import products, so say cars made in Canada or Japan, they come into America. And then what Trump is doing is he's putting a 25% tariff on that product. So he goes to Nissan and says, hey, Nissan, you're going to pay 25% of your profit to put this car in the United States. And Nissan turns around and says, okay, Mr. Government. And what they do is they then put on a 25% increase on the product to the consumer. It gets passed on to the consumer. And a lot of people are saying, oh, well, that just makes general goods more expensive. And, you know, if you want to buy foreign, yes, absolutely, it does make it more expensive. But if you're buying American, it will be cheaper. And what does it mean to buy American? So to buy American, cars and goods manufactured in the United States. So there was a special Fox News ran for a Dodge Ram. And Dodge isn't, at least the Dodge Ram, isn't made in America. It's an American company, but it's made in Mexico, I believe. And so those trucks, because they're not made in Mexico, get slapped with a 25% import tariff. And the goal of these tariffs is to get these companies to come back to the United States and open up manufacturing jobs to create employment in areas that have not had employment in the trades in decades. So areas like Detroit, Chicago, Gary, Indiana, anywhere along the Appalachian Rust Belt, those areas. So that's the whole point of tariffs, is to bring jobs back to those areas that have been devastated by their pullout. So, you know, basically Fox News ran an ad saying, oh my God, this $80,000 truck is now $100,000 and it's not moving off the lot. Well, I hate to break it to you, but no, the average American is not buying an $80,000 truck. The average American, maybe someone in the upper middle class, maybe someone in their 60s or 70s that has the money from retirement and it's like, I just want to buy one last nice car before I go on and into my non-driving years or past, you know. But or maybe, you know, unless you're a general contractor and you get like the big truck because you need it to haul a lot of shit, but you have an income to justify it. But the average person, like, you know, the average person going to work at a Buc-ee's or a fucking gas station or working at a corporate 9 to 5, that person's not probably going to buy an $80,000 truck. So basically the whole point of the truck was the truck went up to $100,000 with the tariffs. And if you have $80,000 truck money, you have $100,000 truck money. The difference between $80,000 and $100,000 when you're buying a truck is, I don't know, I think it's negligent at that point. Maybe it's like an extra few hundred a month for your car payment. But if you have $80,000 truck money, that's not going to mean too much to you. Now, if you're someone like me and everyone else listening to this show, all right, yeah, that's going to be terrifying to see that, you know. But we're also not buying $80,000 vehicles. or $100,000 vehicles. We're buying $30,000 vehicles, $20,000 vehicles, Facebook Marketplace vehicles. Maybe the highest is like 40,000. Some of my listeners will listen to. And I say that because most of my listeners are between the ages of 18 to 35. And that demographic typically does not have a lot of income. And why is that? Well, what happens is as time has gone on, inflation has got higher and higher. The last generation to really lock out before the housing market took a huge explosion upwards was the millennials. And ironically enough, they were complaining about not being able to afford a house. I'm sure I'll look back on this episode in 10 years and say, oh, what an idiot, you know, as I'm sitting in my house, you know. But the way prices are, at least on Long Island, are it's very dismal. You know, you're going to move out in your 30s or 40s and buy a house in your 40s or 50s based on the way rents and houses work on the island. So the way, for those of you that don't live on Long Island and live in the greater part of New York State or outside of Long Island and outside of New York State, the average studio apartment that's legal, not talking about illegal rentals, legal rentals, meaning they're up to fire code, they have an egress window, and just some other formalities. Those are anywhere between 2,300 to 3,000, really. $2,300 to $3,000 a month for a studio apartment, one big ass room with a stove and a bathroom. That's anywhere in those ranges, depending on where you go. If you go to an older complex, it's $2,300. If you go to a newer complex, it's probably in the high 2s to the 3s. Illegal apartments are in the 17s. They're in the 19s, maybe 2000. Most of them are in the 18 area, 17 area, everything included. But there's no there's no windows most of the time. No in-unit laundry, maybe like a hot plate. So that's the studio apartment situation on Long Island. And then housing wise, most houses are $700,000 starting, and property taxes are anywhere between $12,000 to $20,000 a year. And you have to remember too, when you're looking at these houses, they're probably going to be bidding war of an extra $100,000. So you have people coming in, they're like, oh, it's 700. I'll put 850 down or 8 down. And then they swoop it up right away. Now, it hasn't been happening as much, the bidding wars, but the bidding wars still do happen. So it's very, the values of people are like, oh, if I hold out, this offer for 750, I could probably get 8. So a lot of people are holding out on offers because they're hoping they could just get more. They're hoping it just starts at 7 and goes up. And a lot of real estate agents hope for that too because their commission check gets higher. So overall, the financial situation for this area is very, very different than the rest of the country because people forget that Long Island is actually an island. So there's not a lot of real estate on the island to begin with. We're actually in a housing deficit on the island because we have so more people than we have housing. So what's happening is a lot of these developers are moving in and they're building new apartment complexes to offset that housing shortage and to provide places for, young professionals to live, which is great, right? Well, they start at $3,000 a month, and that's not including utilities and amenities. And then you have to remember too, when you move into an apartment, you need to have security and first month rent, sometimes first month and last month on top of security. So you're looking at anywhere between $9,000 to $12,000 to move in to an apartment that you don't even own, and it's probably a studio. One bedrooms in this area typically go anywhere between $2,800 to $3,300 a month. And this is Suffolk County, New York. This isn't Nassau County. This isn't even Western Suffolk. This is bumfuck Suffolk, Patchogue, areas that don't matter, but it's away from everything. And when these new apartment complexes come in, they bump up the cost of living everywhere else. So stores will raise their prices on top of already raising their prices from inflation and the egg shortages and so on and so forth, and now tariffs. So the economic situation is getting very difficult, especially for people that are more established. So, I see it firsthand with marketing, right? Marketing is the first thing to get cut in a period of economic uncertainty. And I saw it happen a lot during the Biden administration. And when Trump won the election, on November 5th, my phone was off the hook. When the trade wars started, everyone kind of took more of a conservative outlook on their finances. And once that started happening, I was like, okay, this is going to be a rough period. So the trade wars, I'm going to forecast that the excess economic stress being felt by small businesses, individual workers, and maybe the mid to large size corporation, these financial stresses are probably going to dissipate come the summer, because no one wants a prolonged trade war. No one wants high economic costs. And Trump is really going hard with the trade war with our allies. So I'm projecting, because of one, that there's so many trade wars going on, and two, that because these are our allies, I'm assuming that by the summertime, it'll dissipate and things will start to alleviate again, especially because the tariffs are going to be bringing in, and I'm not saying the tariffs are going to go away, but what I'm saying is that it's going to foster a return to domestic manufacturing and domestic reinvestment. So that should actually add a boost to the economy. And tariffs also, someone explained to me once, but they actually help reduce inflation. And I've been seeing some preliminary results that people have been sharing where inflation is actually going down currently. So this is a very good thing for the economy. It feels fucked up. It feels bad. But if we just ride the hurdle a little bit, the economy will reset and we'll actually have more spending power, which will go a long way in areas like Long Island. As the value of our dollar increases, we're going to see hopefully less people leave Long Island, because Long Island and New York in general are having a brain drain where young people are going to, and when I say young people, I mean 18 to 35. People from 18 to 35 are moving to Tennessee, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, Colorado. They're moving out of New York to these southern areas because there's more economic development down there, and they make a bunch of New York money. They save $50,000 to $100,000. They relocate down there. They get in a cheap apartment or they buy a cheap house, and they either start a business or they get a nice corporate job there that is paying New York wages or comparable wages in an area that makes $7.25 an hour as the minimum wage. So that's a lot of people's game plan. And that's the reason why we went from having 29 House of Representatives or elected representatives to the House in probably like 2009 to now we have 19 representatives to the House in 2025. So we've lost a lot of population. And for those of you that don't know, each representative of the House represents 500,000 people. So every 500,000 people you gain or lose dictates how many House seats you win or lose. So if we've lost, let's just, for simplicity, 10. That means we lost 5 million people in the last 10 years, 20 years, whatever. However long 2009 was, in almost 20 years. So in almost 20 years, we lost 5 million people in the state of New York to all the other states. So we've seen an increase in Texas. We've seen an increase in Colorado. We've seen an increase in South Carolina. All of these areas are getting our pieces of 5 million. And that's not to consider all the other people moving from California, Oregon, Washington State. They're all leaving these liberal enclaves that are high tax, high cost of living. They save up as much money as they can, living with their parents or extended family, and then they move to the cheaper states. So that's really the game plan. And I think it's unfortunate, and that should be a changed reality. It's very sad that, people feel like they have to leave their homes and their families for a better way of life. And I don't want to leave my family. I love my family, and, I don't want to go to another state and be separate from them. And I don't hate where I live, but I'm comfortable here. I have friends here. I have connections here. And it's hard as a small business owner, because if you leave, you have to restart in a new area and remake all these connections and remake friends and, find your way again. And it's very, very, not that I'm dissuading people from doing it, but it's a very difficult prospect. Maybe it's not as difficult as I think it is, but it's also like people are moving not because they're like, oh, I just want to move to a different state. They're moving out of economic necessity. So, it's one thing if you genuinely want to move and that's just who you are and you're like, yeah, fuck it. Like, I hear what you're saying, Anthony, but I don't see it like that. Like, that's cool. Like, that's fine. But the people that do agree with me and feel like they're forced to move to be able to afford their own home or their own, way of life, and they feel like it's like, great, I have to move from everything I know and love to have, a home. That's sad. That's really sad. And that shouldn't happen. And that leads to a decline in society. And then what's going to happen is all these people are moving, right? Well, now things are going to get more expensive because people are going to catch on, right? Like, if I was in South Carolina and I knew all these New Yorkers with a shitload of money with like 50 to 100,000 were saving up, I'd jack up the rent a little bit. Where if I was a restaurant owner, I'd jack up the price a little bit if I saw a lot of expats moving. So, that's what's happening in South Carolina and Florida. It's becoming more expensive, still not as bad as Long Island, but it's becoming more expensive cost of living wise to move there. And that's really the problem. So what's going to end up happening too, for those of us that want to stay in New York, the cost of living in New York is going to end up collapsing. So meaning like it's going to be cheaper to live here because there's going to be less people here, which means there's less jobs, which means workers become more valuable, which means all these different types of skill sets become more valuable. So to the rest of us that are staying, it just makes more sense. We're going to make more money. Long Island is also turning into a retirement community. A lot of young people, like I said, have left. And we're seeing a lot of high-income housing for mostly people that live in the city. So what they're trying to do is like they're building all these apartment complexes along the railroad stations. And basically the concept is you could live on Long Island, walk across the street to the train station, take the train into work, and then come back to Long Island. So it's draining away the city. And then what's happening is all the native young people here, we're moving away. And then all their parents are staying. So they're getting older and we're seeing more retirement communities built up, like brand new retirement homes being built. Very nice homes. So we're seeing all the older people selling off their homes and then moving into these retirement communities, and they're selling their homes for over $1 million in most cases. So, and then who's really buying these homes? I don't know who's buying these. I genuinely don't know who's buying these homes. Maybe people in their 40s. But what I'm trying to say is that eventually it's going to come to a point where it's like, there's going to be so much like demand for high paying jobs and not enough people to fill them. So therefore it might be a benefit in 10 to 15 years for people that do decide to stay economically, because then they could take advantage of these plethora of high paying jobs and have a choice. But that's just my economic prediction. I'm not really sure what's going to happen. But what I am certain of is right now, things are going to suck. And, the housing market, everyone's been hoping for it to collapse for like 2 or 3 years, and it just hasn't collapsed. When it does, even if you don't have the money, I mean, me personally, I'm taking out a fat fucking loan and just buying a house. Even if I don't live in it and I just rent it out, fuck it, that's really just like, if the market collapses to where we think it's going to collapse, or it's going to go back to 300,000 or 200,000, that would be insane. But if the collapse just means going back to 500,000 for a starter home, it's just not worth it, at least in my opinion. Yes, a $200,000 drop off is a big deal, but me personally, it's nothing to get excited about, because it's still like, that's not a starter home. A starter home should be 300 and under. It shouldn't be like 500, 600. So, and then also you got to remember too, interest rates are still high. Interest rates are like at 7.5% the last I heard. So, I don't really know what's going to happen. The rates are going to have to drop down to like 2 or 3% like they used to be, for it to even be appealing to get a loan or a mortgage. But that's just me. I don't know. There's probably more adventurous people that are gonna be like, you're a fucking psychopath. Like, of course, that's a great deal to have it drop to 5%, but whatever. I'm not a real estate agent. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a guy with a podcast. What the fuck do I know? Anyway, a great way to see how the economy is going. See also like monitoring big corporations' advertising spending for the quarter. There are ways to figure it out. I don't know how to figure it out, but if you can figure it out and you can see like big corporate and how they're projecting their advertising spending for the year or for the quarter, you can kind of get a good idea of where the economy is going to be, so you can make investments proper to that. There's also been a huge shift. So with altcoins like Bitcoin, not Bitcoin, like Dogecoin. Dogecoin's in the shitter. Dogecoin, I think, is at like 10 cents a share right now, or maybe it's 19. I don't remember, but it was at like 60 cents a share when when Trump got elected, and it's just been going down fucking hill. I'm pulling it up right now, so bear with me. Let's see what we got going on here. We're gonna go to Doge is at 17 cents a share, and it had like a massive drop off. Like a few days ago, like a month. Let's see what it. Okay, a month ago, at the beginning of the month, it was at 15 cents a share. But like 3 months ago, let's see, it was at January 17th. So a little over 2 weeks into Trump being in, it was at 41 cents a share. When before it was like hovering around. Yeah, it was about hovering around like, I don't know. Let's see, October. Oh, no, it was actually in the shit. So it was at, from like, I don't know, July 21st to October 8th, it was anywhere between 10 to 15 cents a share. It was at 15 cents a share November 4th. And then November 11th, it shot up to 38 cents a share. Really, like if we do, let's just say, yeah, November 4th was election day. And then a few days after election day, it just shot up to like 40 cents. So it's really, and what I find interesting about the meme coins, and what people forget about the word meme, right? Meme means basically something that's popular being replicated over and over again, and being populated in popular discourse. It was originally used as a biological term to talk about cellular reproduction, but it was used sociologically to showcase how cellular reproduction occurs at the social level through media. So meme coins are basically dependent and backed on social occurrences that represent them. So now we have the Department of Government Efficiency, Doge, and the public perception of Doge and Trump is directly linked to the value of that coin. So you can also get an opinion of people's understanding and support of the presidency and Doge's mission based off of Dogecoin's value. Now, it's not a completely hard measurement because not everyone invests in Dogecoin, and a vast majority of Trump supporters don't believe in altcoins. It's a miracle if some of us believe in the stock market, which I fervently believe in investing in the stock market. But, you know, a lot of people don't invest. So it's not like a hard metric, but it is backed by the popular conception of Doge, the government agency, and the Trump administration. So people are investing in their perception of confidence, not perception of confidence, like their perception of the administration and their confidence in the administration when they buy a Dogecoin, even though it's not directly linked to the president or Elon Musk or Doge. It's the perception of it and their belief in it. So that's what meme coins are. They're essentially backed by belief. It's why there was the Hawk coin from the Hawk Tuh girl, and that's why it was like a huge fucking like coin for 3 days, and then she fucking pump and dumped it and took all the money, and everyone lost everything because, you know, she was using it as like a way to just get as much money as possible, and everyone else was investing in her as an idea and an icon socially. So, you know, it can also get killed by the creator too, where it's just a pump and dump. That's still an economic reality, but people invest in things, and that's why these coins are really not stable, and no serious financial advisor ever recommends getting involved in meme coins, because meme coins have they have nothing of concrete value backing it. Like the dollar has gold and oil backing it. You know, any currency has a physical asset backing it. There's no physical asset with a cyber coin. Bitcoin is the only coin, and maybe Ethereum are the only 1 to 2 coins that have any tangible assets because it's backed by a computer system that only replicates it's basically programmed scarcity. So Bitcoin is only as valuable because there's a computer program that shuts off Bitcoin mining once there's a certain amount of Bitcoins in circulation, and that's when Bitcoin is going to shoot up. But the problem is when quantum computing comes out, billions, that cap of Bitcoin is going to be mined in a split second because of how much processing power it takes to create Bitcoin that quantum computing solves. So quantum computing actually has the more processing power than any computer currently in existence. And that will mine all the Bitcoins in like 0.2 seconds. So whoever has the first quantum computer can just mine all those coins, control most of the market share, then tank the value of Bitcoin by selling everything off. So that's really the concern with Bitcoin too, is that like, well, now better technology has come about. So then all your Bitcoin goes away. That's again why I'm not a fan of investing in things that don't have serious tangible value, like linked to a real resource, because real resources, yes, you can run out of real resources, but there's advanced warning of that. There's, okay, we have this much stockpile of it in the world, and here's a quarterly report of how much has been mined and how much currently exists that we know about, and how much may exist based off of surveying. So, you know, there's more like advanced notice, but with this shit, it's like no one knows what happens when quantum computing gets hit. It could be a doomsday scenario for Bitcoin holders, or it could be like a nothing burger like Y2K. And there's no in between, and no one knows when quantum computing is really going to hit the market. So that's why I'm not really that into the Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. That's why I'm not really into cryptocurrency. And I barely know what I'm talking about with it because I don't give a shit about it, because I know it's just not like a solid investment. It's fun to just like when Doge came out, you know, I made my 2000 off it from $40 because it blew up as a meme. And I took my money and ran. Because it's not something that's going to make you a millionaire. It'll never hit $1. People invest in this stuff because they think it's going to be the next Bitcoin. If you missed Bitcoin, you missed Bitcoin. I hate to say it. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. You know, invest in other things like podcasting. This is a $4 billion industry, and it's not going anywhere. It's the new radio. Get involved in this. Get involved in computer programming. Get involved in AI. Get involved in videography. You know, these are skills that are not going to go away, and they're very tangible and usable through time immemorial. You know, someone's always going to need a videographer. Someone's always going to need a photographer. Someone's going to need the next program built. Someone's going to need someone to train their workforce on AI. Just learn a skill, apply it, and just, you know, try to be economically viable. You know, investing in Bitcoin is not going to work. You know, especially like when you're, you know, and back to the original topic of Long Island, right? There's a lot of people that, you know, also don't have skills really. There's a lot of people that work in food service or work in hospitality, or they work as like, you know, low skilled labor is like a cashier or something. There's so many other jobs on the island too, and so many other career opportunities. There's so much money here that you just need to kind of reach out and grab it and just try. That's another problem too with the economic downfall of our area, is not enough people are doing skilled labor to necessitate the ability. Like, not if you want to live here, you got to also like live here money. You know, you need to be stacking paper, so you need skilled labor. So you need to either do, you know, like what I was saying before, like you need to get involved in the media stuff and the coding and artificial intelligence, or you need to do manual labor and union manual labor, not just like, you know, working for Joe Blow at his 35-year-old plumbing company where it's just him and his brother. I'm going to sneeze. Ooh, excuse me. Oh my God. Wow. That was gnarly. But you need to actually, you know, like learn a skill that pays well. Not saying that working for Joe Blow doesn't pay well. Sometimes it does. You'll be surprised, but you really need to like look at your options and look at what's around, because if you live in a high expense area, there's high paying jobs. You just need to go out and grab them. And then, you know, you get the cheapest apartment you could find, and you either save up and wait to buy a house, or you move out of state. And that's just really what it is, you know? So until the market collapses, if you want to hold out and wait till the market collapses. But I don't recommend buying a $700,000 price a house now, because you really want to wait till the market kind of does its thing. And, the real estate agents listening to this are probably rolling their eyes and saying, no, you need to buy a house now. You need to buy a house now. Don't wait. You're ready when you're ready. And well, I can understand that mentally, being ready to buy a house, but financially not being ready, that's a bad decision. It's a bad move. If you're not financially ready to buy or rent, just don't save your money. Deal with it as much as you can. Go to therapy, scream into the void. I don't care. Save your fucking money. Wait for the rate to come down. Real estate agents mostly say that just because they want their commission check, and it's affecting them too. They know that, it's harder to sell a house now because of how expensive everything is, because of the mortgage rate hike, because of the interest rate hikes, because of the property taxes, because of the scarcity, because of everyone moving out of state. They know it's harder here. There's 40,000 real estate agents on Long Island, and the inventory is not enough for all 40,000. So it's bad for them too. That's just another thing. It's just, when you're financially ready, buy a house. Don't listen to the whole, if you're ready to buy a house now, buy a house now, because that's contributing to the bidding wars. That's contributing to people buying more than they can afford. And I'm more concerned about another financial crisis happening, or another housing crisis happening, even if it's a regional one. I could see a regional crisis happening where we're going to see a lot of foreclosures in the next 5 years, especially if the economy doesn't do a turnaround soon, because just buying a house now, it's $700,000. When those rates tank, when everything tanks, that's not good. Because if you look at the graph of interest rates and housing prices, it's very, very, very high at an unsustainable level. So if you buy an asset now, that asset's going to depreciate in value hard, and then it's going to stabilize. So, and it may not shift again for another 30, 40 years. Now, you may be saying, I'm going to live in this house forever, but you might not be able to. Your family might expand more than you expected. You might face hardships. You might get a better job opportunity and you have to leave. So if you have to sell that house before you're ready to, in your, later years, you are most likely going to lose out on hundreds of thousands of dollars that you put into that house. So just be smart, wait for the dip, buy low, sell high, buy low, sell high. People buying houses on Long Island now are not adhering to that at all. It's like if you just turned 18, you downloaded Robinhood and you just started buying shit without any financial education. That's what this reminds me of. And you get hurt every time. You get hurt every single time because you don't know how basic finances work. The stock market version of buy low, sell high applies to housing. Buy low, wait for the crash, or look for a really good deal in the current market. So if you see a house for like 4 or 5, and it makes sense where it's like, okay, it's a 3-bedroom for 400 or 500. All right, that's not bad. I'll take it. But if it, don't wait for it to get to like 3 or 2 like it used to be, because we don't know if that's going to happen. Like 500's fine, but then again, that's just for your own. If you're really a strict adherent to buy low, sell high, yeah, bro, fucking buy the house at like 5. If you're strict adherent to it, don't buy the house at 5. Wait for it to get 2 to 3. Wait for the whole value to collapse. But me personally, I don't know, man. Like if I saw a good deal for the current market and I was ready to move out and I had the money, sure. But if you're a strict adherent, be a strict adherent. All I'm saying is don't buy a $700,000, $800,000 house that really should be $400,000, because then when the market crashes, you lose $400,000. That's just my shtick. But anyway, that was my quick rant about the state of affairs of housing and money and so on and so forth on Long Island. Thank you for listening to episode 305, and until next time.